Hello, Pie Martins. Today I thought we would read The Mystery of the Hidden Gold, but we are inside our classroom. I thought you'd have a quick, it's looking a bit wet outside there. Anyway, we're on chapter 3, Operation Gold. Scott sighed and raked his fingers through his sun-streaked brown hair. We solve our mystery, another one pops up and takes its place. We know what Maddox hid on Gull Island, but what happened to John Macy? Maybe Maddox came back and found out Macy was thinking of handing the map over to the police, so he bumped him off, Jack said, miming a gory, throat-slitting episode. Emily nodded. That would explain why the journal entries just stop. Suddenly, the room was filled with dazzling light. Ah! Jack clapped his hands over his eyes. I'll talk. The electricity had come back on. There was a round of applause from the guest lounge. Scott looked out the window. While they had been engrossed in the journal and the map, the storm had blown over. The waves had calmed to a restless roll. The sky was clear, stained glass blue. Oh no, he groaned under his breath. He'd been hoping to be stranded at the lighthouse for the night. It wasn't that there was anything wrong with Stone Cottage. In fact, Scott had grown to love Aunt Kate's little house on Church Lane, apart from the flowery cushions and the teeny tiny telly, maybe. But he'd always wanted to spend a night in the lighthouse. And when Emily's parents said it was too dangerous to walk back along the promontory to the village in the storm, he and Jack had leapt at the chance. It's okay, boys, you can still stay. I've already made up the beds for you in the living room upstairs, Emily's mum said as she came into the dining room and began opening windows. It's so stuffy in here. We need to let in some fresh air. So what are you waiting for? Jack asked as soon as Mrs. Wilde had gone. Let's go and bag us some African gold. Emily laughed and shook her head. It's a long way to row to Gull Island, and it could take us ages to find it. We'll need a full day and properly plan the expedition. Ah, yes, planning, thought Jack. I should have known. Emily made planning into an art form. She couldn't even open a packet of crisps without figuring out the optimum strategy. Emily fetched the notebook from her bedroom. She turned to a new page, wrote Operation Gold, and underlined it in red pen 3 times. A balloon of excitement inflated in Jack's chest. This was the 3rd investigation together, and it could be the biggest one yet. We'll need to work out what all these scribbled notes on the map mean, Scott said. Maddox hasn't marked the actual location of the gold. We can't just pitch up on the island and start digging random holes. Jack shrugged. Actually, that pretty much summed up what he had in mind. So what do you suggest, oh great and wise one? Well, since you ask so nicely, Scott said, there's an arrow pointing to this little inlet here. I'm guessing that's where Maddox's lifeboat got washed up. And all these notes must be instructions for finding the gold. Emily grinned. You're right, but not exactly obvious, are they? She said, and began to read out loud. Point nose to nearest of the 2 towers, and with both in alignment with S on the shark. What towers? Jack asked warily. Alignment? S? This was starting to sound suspiciously like one of those maths problems that they're always having to do at school. If 2 lines are at right angles to a circle and x equals y, what's the square root of infinity? His brain was already hurting. They're like the weird clues to those crosswords Aunt Kate does, Scott said. Jack thought crosswords were even worse than maths problems. But to his great relief, Emily jumped up and ran to the window. Look, there's Gull Island. You can just see it further out into the bay, now the sun's out. Jack looked over her shoulder. That little white island, you mean? Yeah, its Cornish name is Gwencarrick, which means white rock. Wow, is that white stuff snow? Jack asked. Snow? Snorted Scott. In Cornwall? In August? Think about it, Emily told him. There's nothing there but a gazillion gulls and guillemots and kittiwakes. Let's just say there are no indoor facilities. Jack had no idea what a kittiwake or a guillemot was, but he got a general picture. You've kind of spoilt it for me now. That's why the only people who ever go there are bird watchers, Emily said. And the old dodgy shipwreck sailor hiding stashes of gold, Scott pointed out. Emily sat back down and studied the map again. 2 towers. What towers can you see from Gull Island? The lighthouse, Jack suggested. Oh, and you could see the castle on the cliff behind. That's got a tower. Good thinking, Emily wrote in her notebook. Clue 1, line up towers, lighthouse and castle. The next bit looks like some kind of code, Scott said, poring over the map. F6Z4B3. They were interpreted by Emily's dad, entering the dining room carrying a tray of water jugs and tablecloths. Sorry to break up the parties, kids, but I have to set up for dinner. What's this, a treasure map hunt? Oh yeah, sort of. Emily quickly tucked the map and journal out of sight. We never lied to her parents, but she preferred to keep her investigations under their radar, in case they got worried, or even worse, tried to help or something. And it wasn't difficult. Mum and Dad were so busy running the bed and breakfast, their radar would hardly even beep if she took a lion taming in the living room. Dad ran his hand over his long greying hair and tightened his ponytail. He always did that when he was worried. What's the matter? Emily asked, hoping Drift hadn't been caught sneaking into the kitchen again. Dad sighed. Oh, I was just hoping Simon didn't get caught up in the storm. He went off to Cracklestow this morning to hire a sailing boat. Simon Fox was a guest at the lighthouse. He'd checked in a couple of days ago. He was an Australian and said he was spending the week in Cornwall by himself to get his head straight after breaking up with his girlfriend. And so far, at least, Emily hadn't established any major holes in this story. Unlike Mr. Tanaka, she thought, glancing through the guest house lounge. He said he was a salesman from Tokyo, visiting a fudge factory outside Truro, but his movements were highly suspicious. They'd been late-night phone calls, and he snapped the top of his laptop down very sharply when Emily had tried to catch a glimpse of his screen earlier. Look, here he is now, said Jack. And if on cue, Simon Fox breezed through the front door. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with messy blonde hair and blue eyes. Dressed in a faded rugby shirt and baggy shorts, he looked exactly how Emily imagined Jack would look if he fast-forward 20 years. He acted pretty much the same way too, like a friendly, overgrown puppy. G'day all, bit of a shocker out there, he said, addressing everyone in the guest lounge. You didn't try sailing in this weather, did you? Dad asked. Now, mate, I've been giving it a go, but they wouldn't let me take the boat. I had to entertain myself in Carrickstowe all day. Good thing I like a challenge, eh? Everyone laughed. Hey, Hiroki's how's tricks? Simon high-fived Mr. Tanaka. Emily stared at Simon Fox. Hiroki. How had he got to be the first name terms with Mr. Tanaka? Mr. Tanaka looked like the kind of guy who'd find the use of his initial a bit over-familiar. But Simon's friendly manner was infectious. The Hartley twins stopped squabbling and swung from his arms. Mrs. Hartley made a space for him on the sofa. And as for Mum, if she batted her eyelids any more as she offered him a gin and tonic, they were going to fall off. Jack was starting to find his one-man popularity contest a bit over the top, but then Simon Fox pulled an enormous box of chocolates out of his backpack. Picked these up for everyone to share while I was in town. Jack, do you want to do the honours and open them? All round good bloke, Jack thought, as he helped himself to a caramel truffle. In fact, the only one who didn't seem to be impressed with Simon Fox was Drift, who curled up on the sofa and ignored him. Probably just annoyed because he wasn't allowed a chocolate. Sorry, Drifty, Jack said. Chocolate's poisonous for dogs. Your species has got a major design flaw there. Drift flicked his ears. He didn't look amused. Join us for Chapter 4, where the investigation begins. Take care.